Good for today. So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second session of Ethical and Responsible AI seminar series. Today, we have Dr. Shumit Saha for his talk. So, I will go with his introductions and then he can share his slides for today's talk. So Dr. Shumit Saha is an assistant professor in the Department of Biomedical Data Science in the School of Applied Computational Sciences. He received his PhD in biomedical engineering from the University of Toronto and KITE, Toronto Rehabilitation Institute, University Health Network in Canada. Before that, he completed his MSc from the University of Manitoba, Canada, and his BSc from Khulna University of Engineering and Technology, Bangladesh. Upon finishing his PhD, Dr. Saha served as an assistant scientist at the University Health Network and held a cross appointment as an assistant professor at the Institute of Health Policy, Management, and Evaluation in the Dalla Lana School of Public Health in the University of Toronto. Dr. Saha's research has focused on developing artificial intelligence embedded mobile and digital health technologies such as wearables, smartphones, and applications to improve the management of chronic diseases. To manage chronic diseases, including heart failure, sleep apnea, diabetes, and asthma, he has developed several algorithms utilizing advanced signal processing and AI techniques. He has published more than 17 peer-reviewed articles in prestigious journals. Additionally, he is an editorial board member for Scientific Reports Nature Publishing Group. So that's all for Dr. Saha. Before we start the talk, please make yourself muted. We will have a question answer session once Dr. Saha will finish. And then I will post the post survey for your feedbacks to fill in. So please go to the link and fill the survey after the talk. Okay. So welcome, Dr. Saha, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you so much for the kind introduction. So today, what I'm going to talk is about the application of AI in chronic disease management. The way I set up this talk is mostly try to show you a real-world example of how an AI technique is currently using in one of the Canadian hospital and how it's helping the patient. So this work is mostly, some of the part of this work is from my predecessor, like, is it all good? Okay, so, and some of the work is what I did after I joined there. So before I start, let's get some introduction, and I'm gonna go with the basic one. When we talk about artificial intelligence, sometimes we misunderstand the concept of what is artificial intelligence. In a simplest definition of AI, is the computerized ability to perform tasks commonly associated with human intelligence, for example, reasoning, discovering patterns, generalizing knowledge and learning from experience. And obviously, artificial intelligence is a broader term with machine learning, neural network, deep learning, everything in it. Okay? And that's why I believe that AI is a misleading phrase in general. Maybe simulated intelligence or even simulated decision might be a better description of AI. And one of the big chunk of AI is rules-based expert system. So rules-based expert system is what I think is the most important part of when we actually develop a real-world example. Because in healthcare, what happens is that if you go for a deep learning method or even higher order machine learning method, the amount of data we need is never enough. Plus, the data is always biased in some sense. So that's why maybe a rules-based expert system can help in that regard to at least.
Dr. Saha, your slides are not advancing. Yeah.
Really? Okay,
Yes.
let me check. Is it good now?
It's just showing the title slide right now. Yeah.
I think
Oh,
you're not maybe in the right view. There it goes. That moved.
Yeah. Thank you.
yes. How about now? Which slide is showing?
AI in healthcare. AI in healthcare, top sectors in AI startups. That's what's on the screen now.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
good.
can put it on the slideshow too, so that
Yeah,
uh,
maybe this is better. Okay.
yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So in general, AI in healthcare, the top sectors of AI startups are in mainly healthcare, finance, retail, and autonomous vehicle. We know that. But one of the important scenario or what's the study is showing is that 80% of these startups fails. And when they actually studies why this startup fails, they realize that when AI startup, usually AI startup rush for quick profit, so they may overlook the developmental stage. Many AI startup face pressure to succeed quickly, and the biggest reason I think is sustainable AI technology. So that means is that when they develop in the algorithm, probably the machine learning algorithm, what happens is that they make the algorithm in a way that is good for that specific data set. But when it comes to the real world, when it's seeing the new set of data set, it's not sustaining. So that's probably the main reason, and that's why usually the healthcare startup is failing. So usually the analogy, I think there is an animation here. So let me check if you can see the animation. It's showing the AI in healthcare analogy, right? So usually the best example of AI success is autonomous vehicle right now. And we all know that currently people are like in Tesla or any other technology, big companies are using AI or deep learning AI for actually moving the vehicle. Now, to get this point, we need to understand that it's not happened once in a day. The stages of autonomy in autonomous vehicle came after almost 5 main steps. And the steps are, first of all, no automation. Then there's some assistance come, for example, lane changing, blind spot detection. And after some point, after with all the sensors, the full automation come where you can literally sleep when you are driving. So now, if we want to translate this in healthcare tech, so obviously the first thing, if you want to follow this route of autonomous vehicle technology, we need to start with rules-based AI, then probably go for further enhancement with machine learning and deep learning, and then we can do future enhancement even on that tech. So that's probably the best approach if you want to go for a real world application of health tech. Now let's go back a bit and let's get the definition of chronic disease. My slides are changing, right?
Yeah.
It's
Dr. Saha, sorry for interruption. Your volume is a little low to hear. Can you check your mic? Yeah.
yeah, is it good?
Uh,
Is it still low?
It's good for me.
okay.
Okay. So now you're saying chronic disease, that page. I'm just making sure that my slides are changing. Okay. So the definition of chronic disease are defined broadly as a condition that lasts at least 1 year or more and require ongoing medication and attention. So in general, chronic disease are like there's those diseases, if that occurs in a human body, it usually stays lifelong. So for example, heart disease, cancer, chronic lung disease, stroke, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, chronic kidney disease, those are the main chronic disease.
Dr. Saha, the slide is still not, it's on 3. We can see slide 3. Sorry for interruption. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, now we can see.
Okay. And now the 6 in 10 adults in US have a chronic disease, and 4 in 10 adults have 2 or more chronic diseases. And this is the leading cause of death and disability in the United States. Annual healthcare cost for chronic disease management is $4.1 trillion. So you can see that that's probably the main driving factor of healthcare industry, the chronic disease itself. So obviously we need to do something that how can we better manage chronic disease? Because you need to understand something here is that when a chronic disease occur, it's not going away. So people needs to be monitored almost daily basis in some cases. So when they needs to be monitored in daily basis, the issue is that there is a lots of resources needed, and it's come with a huge cost. So obviously we need to figure out a better way of how we can manage these diseases. And that's where University Health Network developed a product called Medley, and that is for heart failure management. So although I make the talk for chronic disease, I'm going to show you a case study of how a hospital manage the heart failure in terms of with a technology. So what is heart failure? So heart failure is the inability of heart to pump adequately to meet the need of the body. Let me just actually remove this because this should come as animation. So 1 in 5 people over 40 will develop heart failure. 1 in 2 people have touched by heart failure. So some of our family member may have this condition. Average life expectancy after developing heart failure is 2.1 years. 40 to 50% will die within 5 years of diagnosis. 80% will die within 10 years of diagnosis. And heart failure was the contributing cause of 1 of 8 deaths in 2017. So you can see that heart failure is an epidemic, and we need to have a way to manage heart failure. So why the problem? What is the problem in heart failure management? The biggest problem is the physician's function. So this graph here is showing where after you develop a heart failure, if this is the time frame before people die, and this is the physician function. So what happens is that in general, after they develop heart failure, they get treated well for some time, and then they start deteriorating again till they die. And these red points are showing when they actually have see the doctor. So you can see that this is kind of blind luck for the physician if a patient would actually have an worsening condition in this time. If they don't have an worsening condition in this time, then actually they are not treating this patient. So obviously there's something needs to be done that where actually physician can check if the patient is doing well. So, and those worsening condition are called decompensated heart failure. That's the medical term of that worsening condition. So the solution that UHN made is called Medley. It's an evidence-based Medley program developed at University Health Network, goes beyond traditional and remote patient monitoring by merging an advanced and low-cost digital tool with clinical best practice to deliver comprehensive model of heart failure care. This software was developed using an agile development process and meets ISO 13485 quality management standard. Medley is licensed by Health Canada as a class 2 medical device. So I'm going to go over Medley, what the more details of it. So in Medley has a patient application. So usually what happens is that if in every morning, daily, at the first thing after patient wake up, they measure their weight, blood pressure, heart rate, and there's some symptoms questionnaire. They fill this up, and then they receive instant feedback through the app, and which compares reading against their personalized threshold. And then they monitor their health status through reviewing trends, laboratory data, and alert history. So this is the alert example. Let's say at the 9:40 a.m. After they give all the vitals, this is the message usually pop up based on their thresholds we set, and we can check that if the patient is to go to an emergency department or they're fine or not. And they can also see the trend of their blood pressure or weight in the chart as well. So essentially what is Medley doing, Medley has 3 peripheral devices, which are WET, they are a blood glucose monitor, they are blood pressure and heart rate monitor. And we have this technology integrated with Apple Health. So if you are using Apple phones, they can is as usually integrated with their Apple Health. It's Bluetooth enabled for any sort of peripheral device, and it's actually good for chronic heart failure. So in the daily measurement tasks, they usually measure blood pressure, heart rate, and symptoms, and some questionnaire. These are the questionnaire like, have you fainted? If has your ICD gone off? Is your breathing in the night gets worsened, and those so on. And they can review the trend. And on the other side, there is a clinician dashboard. And as soon as the patient actually enter all those vitals, it generates a report and it goes to the clinician's end to review the alert. And usually there is a nurse who actually check the alert at the beginning and review the alert center rapidly to identify and respond the patient who have alerted through Medley. And then they actually can also assess the alert, like when is the alert triggered, what was the measurement, what are the main symptoms, and what was the message that was delivered on that time. And based on the alert setting, they usually either call the patient to check, or usually they even call 911 depending on the situation. So the Medley algorithm, the way this Medley algorithm works is based on a rules-based extra system that was developed and rated by the heart failure clinician at UHN. It usually takes input of this weight, blood pressure, heart rate, and symptoms. It has a decision matrix, and based on the weight, it gives the output in 8 different range. The first, like the severe one, is the go to emergency department. The other ones are like they contact the clinic, or because they have a large weight change, or sometimes they are prescribed for medication, or if they think that is a bit changeable, but probably it will be better later in the day, so they call to like measure after like lunch or after dinner. And if everything is fine, usually no message goes to the clinician. So when we actually check patient alert status, what we found is that almost 75% of the time, clinicians review not required. So that means is that patients are doing fine. Almost 25% of the time, there are some cautionary alert comes, and only less than 1% of the time, there's critical alert. For example, go to ED or something like that is triggered. So based on this, what we found is that actually we are triggering more self-care, because when patients are normal, so they are just monitoring themselves, they're actually educating themselves in a way that they now know that they are making a good health. And if something is going wrong in the cautionary alert, they can even take some sort of medication or diuretics to fix those, even staying at home. They don't need to even come to hospital. So if the patient follow the self-care instruction, and sometimes a call between clinician is needed and they are fixed. So this is the Medley kit looks like. It has an app. It has a blood pressure monitor, a weight machine, and usually we give this out to the patients depending on their health status. So if I go over a Medley model overview, a patient is here. Every morning they check their vitals and they give all the inputs to the Medley application. And then based on their application, if everything is fine, we say your measurements are okay. If something is wrong, we prescribed the medication, and we also show why we are prescribing it. For example, their weight is probably a bit higher than expected. And also we triage the response to the clinicians. So at the first stage, all data and alerts goes to the Medley dashboard, wherein Medley nurse coordinator check the data. And if needed, it also only critical alert goes to an email alert to the cardiologist or a phone message. The reason is that they are busy. They don't usually come back and check Medley dashboard for us. So that's why they only check email or even text message. So only critical alert, we actually send those to the cardiologist so they can call right away. So this is the Medley model overview. So you can see that in the model of care delivery, what's happening. So one Medley nurse coordinator is able to provide comprehensive care up to 350 complex chronic patients. And this is astonishing because that means that almost it reduced the cost of 350 nurses at a single time point. So we don't, those patients don't need to get to come to hospital. It reduces their cost, it reduces their time. Plus, on the other hand, only one nurse can maintain the condition of the patient while they're staying at home. So let's go and check what is the Medley's impact till death. So far, we did several randomized control trials tried to check the efficacy of Medley. The first trial we did actually health service utilization, try to check that how much we actually like utilize the service of hospitalization. So this in the left one, the left bar is showing the heart failure related hospitalization 6 months before enrollment. And the right one is showing 6 months after enrollment into the Medley program. And you can see that almost 50% reduction in the heart failure related hospitalization occurs. Almost 24% reduction in the all-cause hospitalization occurs in the same patient pool. So it's showing that we are almost optimizing 50% of the hospital's resources. Plus, we wanted to check that how is the quality of life of the patient. So this is the scale MLHFQ, which is usually used for quality of life. And you can see that overall quality of life improved after 6 months of using Medley. Physical heart failure quality of life also improved. Emotional heart failure quality of life also improved. So overall, it's showing that patients are feeling better when they're into the Medley program. Plus the self-care heart failure index, or SCHFI, which is actually showing that self-care maintenance and management. And we can still see that there is a significant improvement in the maintenance and management. There is not significant improvement for the confidence, but it's still increased. So overall, it's showing that people are now more aware of their self-care. Plus, if we go and check the prognostic diagnosis, we check their vitals. For example, BNP is usually the indicator of heart failure that is coming from the blood. And so usually the higher value of BNP means they have worsening condition of heart failure. And we check and find that almost 60% decrease in the BNP value after 6 months into the Medley program. So again, it's showing that they're improving their condition. Plus, if we check the cost effectiveness, so this is a cost-effective study done by the cost-effective clinicians, and we check and we found that Medley is 90% cost-effective. and also for advanced heart failure management, it's even better. And this is the patient experience, and this is probably my favorite slide in the whole presentation. So this slide is the adherence to the daily reading, because obviously when we tell patients they need to do daily measurement every day, the first thing comes to the mind that, oh, people, they won't do that. They will get tired and everything. So the obvious thing we tried to measure is that how is the adherence to the daily readings. So, and what we did, we actually from the month 1 to month 12, from their enrollment, we check how much is their adherence. And interestingly, what we found is that this blue line in here is the 70 years or more older aged, and this dotted blue line in here is the below 40 years people. And surprisingly, we found that 74%, almost the 70 years of age people are actually using Medley every day, even after 12 months. But those people who are below 40, who are younger, who are more tech savvy, they are not using it. So that's interesting, because we thought that older people are not do not want to use technology, but that's not the case. If we prompt them well, if we actually make the app more accessible, older people still use it. And actually younger people don't use it because they think that they are doing well, they don't need to get monitored every day. So that's their back of the mind thought. But yeah, so that's a very interesting findings. So we have decade of evidence. We started from 2012 and till now we have many publications out of Medley, and these are some of the evidences. And after that, so you see that the base of the rule-based algorithm is established. Medley is working, it's working fine. Now, the next step is the integration of machine learning and try to see if we can actually improve Medley's algorithm more. So that's the feature advances, and that's where my project started mostly. So right from this point, what I'm showing to you is mostly all of my projects. So the first thing is the limitation of current Medley expert-based system. And you can think the main thing is that when we develop a rules-based algorithm, there's a conservative in nature. We don't need to miss a single false negative. So obviously our first target is to reduce the number of false negatives. And once you try to reduce the number of false negatives, the vice versa fact is that it will increase the false positives or increase the false alarms. And also that means that there is something needs to be done to decrease the false alarms. Plus the other limitation of expert system is that we have limited number of variables. We cannot use a lot of variables because we are actually establishing the rules. So next step is try to see if a machine learning model, including the electronic health record and Medley data, what we have to reduce the false positive. So what we did, actually, we explore the electronic health record data set, plus the previous day's data from the Medley, what we collected, and explore different machine learning approach. We call this project Medley AI. And overall, when we started the project, we found that of 342 patients of daily measurement from 1 to 3 years, we had the Medley observation of daily input, their symptoms data. From the EHR, we found their lab reports, for example, their all the blood work and everything. Also their medical history, for example, if they're a smoker, they had diabetes, they have other chronic condition or not. So overall, we found almost 64,000 cases where almost 9,000 cases were positive alerts. And you can imagine that almost 4,000 are false positives. So almost 45% are actually false alerts. and 55,000 as negative alerts, and only 244 are false negative, in which cases Medley missed. So obviously we don't need to increase that. That's our another goal. And we started the algorithm. I can't show you what algorithm we developed because there's a patent in progress, but I can show you the result. So the result is that we found the PPV increased from 54% to almost 82%, while the sensitivity is same and accuracy is also increased. So that means what it's showing is that when the sensitivity is same, we are not increasing any false negatives. The only thing we did is actually we increased the positive predictive value. That means we reduce the number of false positives. And you can see that this is the metrics of the true level when they are using the rules-based algorithm. And there is almost, this is in the test set, by the way. So there is almost 700 false positives. We reduced to 116, while false negatives are still in 43. So it's showing that this model is working. Plus, we did more work to try to get the interpretability of the result and where it's improving. So this is what we did with the Shapley plot. And in the Shapley plot, what we find, obviously, the rules-based algorithm output was the major player in the algorithm. But there are some variables are playing a role. For example, BNP, platelets, they are coming from the electronic health record, total cholesterol, LDL. So it's showing that if we integrate EHR, so that means that and with more variable, now it's improving the results. So summary of the Medley AI is that including AHR improved the management, plus introduction of machine learning is helpful for a rules-based algorithm enhancement. The next one is medication management, where we used Medley to heart failure medication. So the problem is in heart failure medication is that there is 4 types of drug, but patient cannot tolerate all the drugs at the same time. So they require a sequence of upscale in the drugs that is called titration. And the titration management is called guideline-directed medical therapy, or GDMT. And you can see in this figure that if the patient use almost 4 type of drug together, there's almost 61% chance of decreasing their mortality. So that means it is very important to actually titrate this 4 drug as soon as possible. And there is a guideline of titrating this in 4 months or 4 to 6 months when the patient developed heart failure. But there's a huge trial, a registry in US, that's showing that only 10 to 30% of the population can reach the GDMT optimization. So in this 4 type of drug, you can see that this blue is the one where people actually reach the target dose. And in most cases, the number is really low, 17%, 14%, 17%. So that's showing that this is not working. The medication management is not working. And even it is dire in historically marginalized community. So what we did a remote trial. And this actually happened during COVID. And what we're trying to see if we can just call the patient and do their drug management. And what we find actually, yes, remote titration works. This is the figure. You can see that in the control arm, so we did a randomized control trial, and in the control arm, which is the current standard of care, only 52% patient reach the target dose within 6 months. And in the remote titration arm, almost 90% of the patient reach the target dose. And the week to optimization, remote titration occurs within 12 weeks, while the control groups occurs in 19 weeks. So, and also the number of clinic visits reduced. So overall, it's showing that this remote titration is working. Now, I also wanted to show you something interesting, that this 50%, 2% of the control arm achieved in the standard of care of Toronto General UHN, and that is world's number 4 best hospital in the ranking. Now you can imagine, even in the world's 4 best hospital, only 50% of the patient get optimized dose. And that is surprising. So you can imagine in a tertiary care, in a smaller clinic, this number is less than 10%. It's massively undermined. So that's showing the concept that how remote monitoring or remote titration is a dire condition, and there's so many companies working on this right now. So overall, what we showed that 90% of the patient achieved the target dose within 6 months. We reduced the clinic visit almost 54%, but one drawback of this is that we had a almost 3 times number of phone call. That makes sense. Now the next part of which we can enhance more, and then we did a voice-based introduction, because sometimes for the older population, they don't want to actually go through all the screen. So, and then we actually partner with Amazon Alexa, and we did this project with them. And I'm going to show a small demo of how this works. I hope it plays and you have the sound.
Alexa,
Can you hear this? Vivodi, can you confirm?
open Medley at home.
Welcome to Medley at Home. This is a beta version of the Medley program. Please remember to always input measurements and to follow guidance from the Medley smartphone app. Let's get started. When you're ready, step on the scale and take your weight. Please say Alexa before you tell me each measurement.
Alexa, my weight is 123.5 pounds.
Great. Let's move on. When you're ready, please take your blood pressure reading. Say Alexa and the measurement when you're ready.
Alexa, my blood pressure is 120/80.
Now, please tell me your heart rate reading after you say Alexa.
Alexa, my heart rate is 80.
I've recorded that your weight is 123.5 pounds, your blood pressure is 120/80, and your heart rate is 80 beats per minute. Is this correct?
Yes.
Glad to hear. Let's move on to the symptom questions now. Have you fainted recently?
No.
Has your ICD gone off?
No.
Has your breathing at night worsened?
No.
Do you have more chest pain than usual? Are you feeling more tired than usual? Are you experiencing shortness of breath? Are your ankles swollen?
No.
I've recorded that you have no symptoms. Is this correct?
Yes.
Contact the clinic or your family doctor. Thanks for using Medley. See you tomorrow.
So this is a demo of how a voice-based feature looks like. And we actually did a trial and we found very good response on this voice-based feature. The other feature is introducing large language model. As you know that people are like there is a boom of large language models. So we also wanted to implement this into Medley to actually make a virtual heart failure assistant. And I did this project before I left the organization. And this is the heart failure virtual assistant. And this is how the bot looks like. If you ask the question, what is your job? This answer is, my job is to provide virtual assistant for heart failure management. I can answer question related to heart failure and provide advice on how to manage the condition. Now you can ask questions, it will give answer based on the condition. And if you ask like how do I strengthen my heart muscle? It will give you the guidance. And the good factor is that it won't answer anything out of context. For example, if you ask who is Barack Obama, it said, I'm sorry, I don't have any information about Barack Obama. I'm a virtual assistant of heart failure management and can only answer related to heart failure. So it is very specifically designed. And the other enhancement we tried is medley for families. So obviously, sometimes the patient we deal with, they are older patients. So sometimes if family person is helpful to actually go over those symptoms, so we add a caregiver where you can put, they can put their son or daughter's name or some relative's name or sister's name, and then they can actually, that person also will get an alert in cases. And so this is some quotes we found, like when we did some interviews of how the medley program is performing. And I'm not going to go over this because I'm almost on time. So, but essentially what the feedback was very, very good. So overall, if we do a snapshot of the whole program, in current setting, it's actually serving almost 800 patients daily. All time we served almost 1,600 patients. We had 17 nurse coordinator and 30 cardiologists into the program. And it's actually showing a lot of traction right now. There is almost 5 different hospitals contacted us to actually make medley into our hospital. Plus, there are some US sites, for example, UC San Diego, Yale University. They are also implementing medley at their hospital as we speak. So if I summarize the whole thing, the main takeaway of this talk is that rules-based AI shows better health outcomes through consistent guideline-directed and evidence-based care. Enhancement of rules-based AI should be implemented once there is an established impact on the healthcare. Patient-centered design is needed. People benefit from digital treatment adoption. It has higher compliance percentage and creates enablement of the patient and their families. I'd like to thank all my previous mentor, my supervisors in this talk, and those are the founder of this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saha. It's a wonderful talk, and I think we can go with the questions from the audience. So those of you who would like to ask questions, you can ask with Dr. Saha or put it on chat, so we can go ahead with that. Okay, so I have 2 questions on the chat. First is, will NGH be participating? Is that the Nashville General Hospital, Dr. Dana?
Yes, and I should have finished. Have you been able to implement in any underserved populations? I'm just curious about uptake in particular.
Yes, so in Canada, there was indigenous population, and we are actually implementing that in those sites for now. It's not actually implemented in US as a whole because there's a spin-off company just established last December, and the company's goal is essentially roll this technology out to different sites, and whoever sites are interested, they are going to roll it out as a standard of care basis.
Thank you, Dr. Saha. The next question is, what is the next iteration of the mobile app?
So the next iteration is right now is more into the titration domain, the one I showed you that because although we did a like a remote titration with the phone calls, but that's actually, you see that there's a lots of new calls coming up, or lots of there's a search for the nurses to call them. So we are trying to do more automation in that sense, try to develop the app in a way that all those call may not be necessary, then we can put into the app. So that's the next iteration of this product.
Okay. Another one is, have you been able to implement in any underserved populations yet?
Yes, so the biggest one is in the indigenous population of Canada. It's in the northern Ontario, and that population actually currently used Medley a lot. And the other project I forgot to mention, we actually implemented Medley in Uganda. So Uganda is a Medley site to check that if it's if this system works in that population, and we actually found it's working. There is a very interesting study where even we found there is that we may not even have to use all those peripheral devices, that devices like for blood pressure monitor and those, rather than we can just have a common center, like a call center type, where people come and check their vitals. And that's where Medley Uganda gets successful. And right now we're actually trying to see if we can implement it in Bangladesh, and we're actually talking, and Pakistan. So those are the two other countries where they are actually targeting. So Uganda, I mean, the reason is that I think we had collaborated there from Yale University. So Yale University PI was one of the one who was working in the Uganda project, and the funding was actually got from NIH to implement Medley in Uganda.
Okay. The next question is, how do you transfer Medley data and make sure patient privacy?
So the first thing we did is that we did not actually, so the Medley, all the Medley ecosystem is into our server, our secure server, and we do not roll the Medley data out to outside yet. So it's still within UHM, but as a researcher like me or any other researcher who wants to use Medley data, it's obviously anonymized, and so there is no patient information there when we actually do the research. But I'm just not sure that if there is a system that we can get Medley data out of UHN yet. That's still under talk.
Okay. The question is, why did you choose Uganda for?
No, I answered this already. Yeah, I mean, I saw the question. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, there is a question from Azizur Rahman. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shumi, for a nice presentation. So I'm just wondering, is there any available other apps that could measure the similar things? And did your app had any comparison with the other available apps?
So currently, not that I know of, in this level is working. There are some apps which use EHR, like it check EHR and trigger to the physician only, not in the patient side. So into the Epic, it is just searched through Epic, the database of the patient, and sometimes it trigger that this patient may be unwell, but not that I know of that this is a patient-centric design where the patient is using it on every daily basis. There is one company in US, Bioformis. I think they are actually trying to develop an app similar to this. That's the only thing, but they're still not in the they're still in the early phases.
Okay. Okay, so I have a question, Dr. Saha. I was wondering, you haven't implemented it yet for the underserved population, right? It's in progress. So I was wondering, like when you developed the algorithm, did you identify any type of bias while implementing it? Like right now, like have you considered those components too while developing the algorithms?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So, and that is what we figure out when we went to the indigenous community. So, like when this app was developed, it was developed by mostly cardiologists in the UHN, and those people, I like, that how rules-based algorithm works. It's mostly they give us the guideline, we check the guideline and work. So obviously, during the development, it was not like have the component of serving all communities. But when we went to Uganda or even in the indigenous community, we found that some of the component may be overkill for those population. We don't need that much of the details. And sometimes, and so that's why we are kind of rolling out now different types of model. So for example, for Medley, as I mentioned, that Medley Uganda is a very different model now than the Medley model I showed, because we realize that we don't even need to go over all those peripherals. They can just come to one centric point and we can distribute the care. So yes, you're absolutely right. They are considering different types of scenario, and obviously, as I'm here, I'm trying to convince them to actually make Medley in Mehari and try to implement it in here. But let's see. Let's hope if it's happened.
Yeah, wonderful. Another question I have is like how challenging it will be if we implement it for the underserved population. Might be your thoughts on that. Um,
So one of the biggest concern or what is the biggest challenge what we found is the digital health literacy. So that's I think what we found is that although this app is, we think it is seamless, we think it is easy, but for population of for those who are not digitally like tech savvy, we can call that, they find it a bit hard to understand. So that's where I think that LLM model is actually helping us, in a sense that we're trying to now prompt them in a way that we're trying to understand what is their need, and also the Medley for families is another way of dealing that. So maybe the person with the heart failure is not using the app, but their relatives are using it. So that's how we're trying to tackle this one now.
Thank you, Dr. Saha. I think we can take one more question, and then we can end the talk for today. Yeah. Okay, so I think we would end the session for today. And thank you very much, Dr. Saha, and everyone who find time to attend the talks. I will see you in the next Tuesday at 11 a.m. with another talk. And please don't forget to fill up the survey that I posted the link on the chat. So you all have a great day and see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.